Once upon a time, in a peaceful village named Duru, humans and magical creatures lived side by side, each respecting the other's way of life. In this village, there was a young woman named Obiora. She was known far and wide for her beauty, but what made her truly special was her gentle and kind heart. She had a way of making everyone feel at ease, and her calm nature drew people to her. Despite her beauty, Obiora wasn't interested in the many suitors who came to the market to try and win her affection. They would approach her, their voices full of hope. "Obiora, you are so lovely, will you marry me?" But Obiora, with a soft smile, would always respond, "Thank you, but I'm not ready." She was content with her peaceful life and had no interest in being swept away by love or marriage just yet. Each day, Obiora would visit the market, selling the finest fruits and vegetables. Her goods were always fresh and in demand, and everyone in the village loved to buy from her. Yet, despite her presence in the market, there was one thing the villagers could never figure out: where did Obiora live? She arrived before the sun rose and always left before dusk, keeping her home a secret. Whispers would spread through the village: where does Obiora go? Where does she live? But Obiora kept her life private. She was content to be kind and helpful, but the rest of her world remained a mystery. And so, life in Duru went on, with Obiora quietly living among the villagers, admired by all but known to few. People came to her for her goods and her gentle smile, but few knew the truth behind the girl who came and went like the wind. Then, one sunny morning, a traveler named Emma arrived in Duru. He was a handsome man, new to the village, and in search of fresh produce for his travels. As soon as he laid eyes on Obiora, he was struck by her beauty. He had never seen anyone like her before. He couldn't help himself, he had to talk to her. Approaching her stand, he smiled and said, "Hello, my name is Emma. What's your name?" Obiora looked up from her work and gave him a warm smile. "I'm Obiora. How can I help you today?" Emma was so happy to have her attention. He bought some of her best fruits and lingered a little longer, eager to speak with her. They chatted about the weather, the village, and the market. Emma found himself enchanted by Obiora's kind words and the way she spoke with such calm and grace. He started visiting her at the market every day, just to see her again. Before long, their friendship grew, and Emma felt his heart begin to soften toward her. He was falling in love. One evening, as the sun began to set and the market was closing, Emma noticed the sky growing darker. He saw Obiora packing up her goods and offered, "Let me walk you home. It's getting late, and it's not safe to walk alone in the dark." Obiora hesitated for a moment. The village was peaceful, and she had always walked home alone. But seeing the concern in Emma's eyes, she agreed. "All right, Emma. But be careful yourself," she said with a smile. They walked together through the village, and as the darkness settled around them, a chill crept into the air. Suddenly, Emma felt something cold brush against his back. He spun around, but no one was there. His heart skipped a beat, and a sense of unease swept over him. Looking at Obiora, he saw her walking ahead of him, calm and composed, as if nothing was wrong. The chill grew stronger, and fear began to take hold of Emma. "Obiora," he said, his voice trembling. "I think I should go back. It's too dark, and I don't feel right." Obiora turned to him with a gentle smile, her eyes filled with understanding. "It's okay, Emma. If you're scared, you can go back." "I'll be fine," she said softly. Emma, still shaken by the strange feeling, nodded quickly and turned to hurry back to the village. He ran all the way home, his heart racing. From that night on, Emma didn't return to the market. The fear of the mysterious cold hand and the unsettling feeling he had experienced was too much for him to ignore. Obiora missed Emma, but she continued her quiet life in Duru. The villagers noticed his sudden absence but never knew the real reason behind it. Obiora, however, carried on, as if nothing had happened. She had her own secrets about where she came from and who she truly was. Obiora wasn't just an ordinary girl from Juru. She was from a magical forest far beyond the village. Her family, who were not human, lived in the deep woods. They had the power to change forms, but Obiora was the only one who could remain in human form. Her family had always warned her against getting too close to humans. Obiora, they would say, you must not fall in love with a human. Our worlds are too different. It will only bring you pain. When Obiora met Emma, her family grew fearful. They didn't want her to fall in love with him, so they decided to scare him away. The cold hand Emma had felt that night was their doing, a trick to push him away and keep Obiora from the human world. Obiora, however, didn't want to follow her family's rules any longer. She had longed to live among humans, to make her own choices, and to find love. So, she made a bold decision. She chose to sever ties with her family and stay in Juru village for good. One day, deep in the heart of the forest, she went to speak with her family. I love you all, she said, her voice full of emotion. But I need to live my own life now. I want to be free to make my own decisions. Her parents were heartbroken but understood. Be careful, Obiora, they warned. The world outside can be harsh. With a heavy heart, Obiora left the forest and never looked back. She hoped that, by living in the village, she would find the happiness and freedom she longed for. However, her departure came at a cost. Her mother, full of anger and sorrow, cursed Obiora as she left. You will never find happiness with a human, she whispered to the winds. You will always be left in despair. Obiora moved to Juru and continued to sell her goods in the market. She kept her past a secret, hoping to find peace in her new life. But the curse of her family hung over her, and Obiora knew that finding love might not be so simple. Still, she remained hopeful, determined to make a life for herself, despite the shadow of the curse. And so, the story of Obiora continued, full of hope, mystery, and the search for belonging in a world full of magic and human hearts. As the stars began to twinkle above, the newlywed couple entered their small home, excited to begin their life together. The air was thick with anticipation, but little did they know, their happiness was about to be shattered in an instant. Obiora sat on the edge of their bed, her hands trembling as she adjusted the fabric of her dress. But then, a sudden unease washed over her. Her heart began to race, and a cold chill crawled down her spine. She looked at Chidubem, worry flickering in her eyes. Before either of them could react, Obiora's body began to change. Her legs fused together as if they were no longer her own, her skin turned rough and scaly, and within moments, she transformed before Chidubem's eyes into a massive python. Her face, though now the shape of a snake, still bore the same sorrowful expression, filled with fear and sadness. Chidubem stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest, his eyes wide with terror. He could hardly believe what was happening. His beautiful bride, Obiora, had turned into a giant snake right before him. The love and joy of their wedding day seemed like a distant memory, replaced by fear and confusion. Obiora, he screamed, his voice cracking with panic. Without thinking, he bolted from the house, stumbling as he fled through the village. His shouts echoed into the night, calling for help, for answers. The villagers, hearing the commotion, quickly gathered in front of the house. Chidubem was pale, his face drained of all color, his chest heaving from the rush of his escape. He pointed toward the door, gasping for breath. It's her. It's Obiora, he cried. The villagers, already familiar with Obiora's kind nature, were filled with fear and confusion. As they cautiously approached the house, they saw it, slithering out of the doorway like a creature from a nightmare. The python, once Obiora, moved silently into the open air, her eyes still filled with sadness, as though she was aware of the horror she had caused. Murmurs spread through the crowd. The elders, wise but now uncertain, whispered to each other. "Is this the curse we've heard so much about?" one asked. The others nodded, recalling the stories of a powerful, ancient curse that had plagued Obiora's family for generations. What had started as a joyful celebration, a day of music and dancing, was now drowned in an eerie silence. The village square, once filled with laughter, was now filled with anxious whispers and fearful glances. The elders, in a state of confusion, knew they needed answers. The only way to make sense of the situation was to call upon the oracle, who had always been a guiding light during times of mystery and turmoil. As the villagers gathered in the square, the oracle arrived, a figure draped in robes, eyes glowing with ancient wisdom. The air seemed to shift with her presence as she walked to the center of the gathering. The villagers stepped back, parting to make way for her. "Obiora," the oracle called out softly. "Come forward." Obiora, in her giant serpent form, slowly slithered into the center of the circle, her massive body undulating gracefully. Her eyes locked with the oracle's, filled with sorrow and desperation. She spoke, her voice resonating within the minds of the villagers. "I am Obiora," she began, her voice heavy with emotion. "I come from a family that lives deep in the forest, far from human eyes. I was born to be different, and I am the only one of my kind who can take on a human form. But my parents, fearing what I might become if I lived among humans, tried to keep me away from them. They feared that if I ever found love, it would only bring ruin." The villagers listened intently, their fear gradually shifting to sympathy as they recognized the pain in Obiora's words. She continued, "I longed for a life of happiness, to find someone who could love me for who I am. I severed ties with my family, hoping to find peace, but they cursed me. They said I would never find true happiness with a human, and now you see the result." The oracle, with deep understanding in her gaze, nodded as she turned toward the villagers. She had heard of the curse, but hearing it from Obiora herself was different. The elders exchanged glances, their faces etched with compassion. The oracle then turned her attention to Chidubem, her eyes piercing through his nervousness. "Chidubem, do you have anything to say?" she asked. Chidubem, trembling and ashamed, stepped forward. He could feel the weight of the villagers' eyes on him, and he knew the truth would be revealed. His voice faltered as he began to speak. I was drawn to Obiora's beauty, her kindness. But there was more. I had other intentions. I thought I could use her for my own gain, take her money and leave her behind once I had what I wanted. I never expected any of this to happen." A collective gasp spread through the crowd. The villagers had always seen Chidubem as a man of honor, someone they trusted. To hear him confess such a thing was a shock. The elders stared at him, disappointment and sorrow in their eyes. The oracle's voice was stern but calm as she addressed him. "You planned to betray her? To use her as a means to get ahead?" Her words hung in the air, sharp and unforgiving. Obiora wanted nothing more than a normal life, to love and be loved. And yet, you saw her only as a tool for your own ambitions. Chidubem's head hung low, unable to meet the eyes of the villagers. His deceit had been laid bare, and now he understood the full weight of his actions. He had planned to betray the very person who had trusted him with her heart. The oracle turned back to the crowd, her voice steady and final. "Chidubem, your actions have consequences. You sought to manipulate Obiora for your gain, and now you must live with the person you intended to betray. This is your punishment. You will remain with her, by her side, as her husband. You cannot escape the responsibility of your intentions." The villagers were stunned. They had not expected such a harsh judgment. Some felt pity for Chidubem, realizing the gravity of his actions. Others felt a deeper sympathy for Obiora, who had suffered so much already. But no one dared to question the oracle's decision. They understood that it was a lesson, not just for Chidubem, but for everyone in the village. Chidubem stood motionless, his heart heavy with regret. He had wanted to use Obiora, but now, the oracle's decree had left him no choice. He had to face the consequences of his betrayal. As the oracle's voice rang out one last time, she spoke with quiet authority. This union must now serve as a reminder of the importance of honesty, respect, and true intentions. Chidubem and Obiora will leave Duru village together, to face the challenges that lie ahead. It is only together that they can begin to make amends. The villagers watched silently as Chidubem and Obiora, bound by fate and the oracle's judgment, prepared to leave the village. Some whispered, others watched with quiet curiosity, but all understood the weight of the moment. The couple's departure marked the end of one story and the beginning of another, one filled with uncertainty, redemption, and the hope that love, once broken, could still find a way to heal. Chidubem and Obiora journeyed through the dense forest, a place so different from the village they had once called home. The air felt charged with an unseen magic, and every rustling leaf seemed to hold a secret. Chidubem walked beside Obiora, his steps heavy with both uncertainty and the weight of his past mistakes. He had no idea what awaited them, but he knew this was the path they had to take. Obiora, still in her giant python form, led the way, her movements smooth and fluid as she navigated the forest with ease. She had spent her life here, surrounded by her family, and now she was returning to them, though the road ahead was uncertain. Chidubem could feel the magic of the place, and with each step, his nervousness grew. He wasn't sure he belonged here, but he knew he had no choice but to try. After what felt like hours, they arrived at a hidden clearing, bathed in a soft, otherworldly glow. This was Obiora's home, the place she had been raised, far from human eyes. As they stepped into the clearing, Obiora's family emerged from the shadows, each figure more mysterious than the last. Some had features of animals, their forms blending into the natural world, while others appeared more ethereal, like beings made of light or mist. They watched silently as Obiora and Chidubem approached, their eyes curious but cautious. Chidubem, feeling the weight of his past actions and the judgment that lay ahead, took a deep breath. He stepped forward and bowed his head respectfully, his voice trembling with sincerity. "I am sorry for my intentions," he said, his words heavy with regret. "I wanted to use Obiora for my own gain, but I have learned my lesson. I accept the oracle's judgment and ask for your forgiveness." The creatures of the forest remained still, observing him. Obiora's parents, who had been worried about their daughter, stood apart from the rest. They could see the remorse in Chidubem's eyes, the genuine change in his heart. They had feared for Obiora, but they also understood the power of growth and change. After a moment of silence, Obiora's mother, a figure both fierce and gentle, stepped forward. "We see that you are truly sorry, Chidubem," she said, her voice calm but firm. "We forgive you. But know this, living among us will not be easy. You must respect our ways, and you must care for Obiora as she deserves." Chidubem nodded deeply, grateful for their understanding. "I understand," he said, his voice filled with resolve. "And I will do my best." Obiora's family, though not quick to trust, saw something in Chidubem, a sincerity that had been missing before. They accepted him into their world, not as someone perfect, but as someone willing to learn and grow. It wasn't an easy transition. Chidubem, who had spent his life in a village with different customs and ways of thinking, had much to adapt to. But the creatures of the forest were patient, and they guided him, teaching him their ways, how to live in harmony with the land, how to understand the magic that thrived in every corner of the forest. Obiora, now free to be herself, embraced her new life with joy. Sometimes, she took her human form, and other times, she returned to her python shape or took on entirely different forms. Chidubem, who had once been afraid of her changes, now saw them as a part of her, something beautiful and natural. He learned to accept her, not in spite of her transformations, but because of them. As the seasons passed, Chidubem began to find peace in the forest. He learned to appreciate the stillness of the woods, the soft rustle of leaves, and the songs of the creatures who called it home. He worked alongside Obiora's family, helping them when he could, learning from them, and sharing moments of quiet joy. The forest had a way of making him feel small yet connected to something greater, a feeling he had never experienced before. Obiora too found a sense of belonging. She was surrounded by her family, and for the first time, she felt completely accepted. But it wasn't just her family that accepted her, it was Chidubem, who had chosen to stay with her despite the challenges. He had faced his past, and together, they were finding a new happiness, one born from understanding and mutual respect. Their life was different from what they had imagined, but it was fulfilling in its own quiet way. They had learned that love was not always perfect, and sometimes, it came with struggles. But true love, the kind that transcended expectations and forms, was always worth fighting for. In the magical forest, surrounded by creatures of all kinds, they found their new rhythm, and it brought them a peace they never thought possible. As the story draws to a close, I hope you found something meaningful in their journey. If you enjoyed this tale, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. What did you learn from this story? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more enchanting tales just like this one. Thank you for joining us on this journey.